how did you all like The Witch of Blackbird Pond? Except for the fact that it may have been kind of difficult for your younger children. How did you all like it? Good. It is a really fabulous book. It's one of those wonderful Newbery Award winners. Elizabeth George Spear was one of these, she was a college grad, she had a master's in something, I can't remember right now, history or something, and she never considered writing as a career, but when both of her children were in school, she started writing. And she found out that she just loved research, and especially historical research. So, The Sign of the Beaver is based on a true story. It's really a true story of a young boy that's 12 years old and lives in Maine for a whole summer by himself and is helped by this young Indian boy. The Witch of Blackbird Pond is also based on a true story because Wethersfield, Connecticut had witch trials there in the 1670s, and 4 women were convicted of, actually 4 people were convicted of witchcraft, 3 of whom were executed. I don't know why they didn't execute the 4th one. Maybe they had enough, they'd bled enough blood that they were satiated or something. But the 4th one, they just banished her from the colony and took away all her property. So this really was a reality. This whole thing about religious persecution and real religious intolerance, and that's a really strong theme in the early colonial era. And I want you to really get that because, America is one of the few places we have such a profound sense of religious freedom, and it's because of what happened in the early colonies. What is really ironic about, there's a couple of ironies, but what's really ironic about this kind of religious persecution was that the initial colonies were first founded by pilgrims. You all know that. They came over in the Mayflower. Why did they come? Religious freedom, that's right. And the Puritans came. Then they established Massachusetts Bay Colony north of Plymouth, and they were Puritans. And they came also for religious freedom because they were being persecuted by the state church, the Church of England, the Anglican Church. And then the Quakers, same thing. William Penn established Pennsylvania, and he sought this land because he wanted to establish a place for religious freedom. So the irony of these witch trials is that here are these people that all come over from Europe seeking religious freedom, and then the tables turn, and as soon as they were in power, they started persecuting those that didn't believe just like me. So these are the ironies of history that are, I don't know, I find those kinds of things really fascinating. But, and then I loved Kit. I think Kit was a very, she was an engaging character. She was characterized in a way that you could identify with her struggles. But one thing that I felt a little disappointed that Elizabeth George Spear didn't bring out was that Kit was a product of a monarchical system. Okay, they brought that out a little bit. She was, she was still loyal to the king and the aristocracy in England. And they make her lifestyle look very appealing, don't they? Her beautiful rich silks and her brocades and her fancy hats and these Puritan girls are just gaga over her wardrobe. And I think that Elizabeth George Spear could have served us a little better if she would have recognized that Kit's wealth and Kit's lifestyle was bought on the backs of black slaves in Barbados. And she never really brings that out. She describes her lifestyle as quite appealing and quite engaging, and she has this free thought and all this. But all of that came from the blood and sweat and broken bodies of the black race in Barbados. So those are the kinds of things that we want to bring out with our kids when we're reading these books. Okay, I have a handout, and if I don't have enough, I apologize, but I will get them to you. I can email them to you. So if I didn't bring enough copies, write your name down on the email, and I'll email you a PDF. Okay. There's just a couple of things on here, and some. I wanted to give you folks some art to work with for your timelines. All my friends. I think that's been a bit of a struggle for people because they haven't really known where to begin and exactly how to do this. But I don't want want you to look at it as a struggle. I want you to look at it as something really fun and something that's going to really help engage your children in the literature and in the historical period that we're presenting. So, you all know that I'm totally in love with Genevieve Foster and her books. And I think one of the reasons I'm in love with Genevieve Foster is she has the most glorious timelines in her books. So all of this art that's on this timeline that my kids and I made up, it's all from her books. And a lot of you have her books, right? So feel free to copy them. Take them to the copy machine. Take them to, there's a UPS right on Johnson, and they've got a copy machine. And just mark them up, mark the figures you want to copy, and then Xerox them, cut them out, have your kids color them. All the dates are in here. It's really easy to do. So don't let the timeline thing stress you out. Make it fun for your kids. You know, maybe devote just one afternoon a week. You know, maybe an hour a week or an hour and a half. And just do that. And talk about the events as you pace them up and what they mean and why they're important. Okay? Because I don't know about you, but I am such a visual learner. I mean, I could read a paragraph all day about William Penn. But if I see a picture of William Penn and I can relate that paragraph to him, for some reason it sticks in my brain. I guess I'm just a visual learner. And I think our kids are by and large visual learners too. So you want to have something visual that they can kind of put a handle on. So let me talk a little bit about some of the figures that I put up here. Okay, we had era and dates. We're starting in the 1600s. This strip is supposed to go up to mid-1700s. We have a few gaps. Don't worry about the gaps. We'll get them filled in eventually. But we have a lot on the early colonization period. We have the Pilgrims. We have Pocahontas in Jamestown, 1607. We have Plymouth, 1620. The Mayflower Compact. William Bradford, the Separatists, landing on Plymouth Rock in 1620. And then this bottom part is supposed to be for world events, not national events. So you keep your sort of national stuff up here and do your world events on the bottom, okay? And like I said, Genevieve Foster has such great stuff. For instance, 1600, the East India Company was established. This is really huge in terms of world commerce. I mean, we think we have a global market now. This is where it started. This is exactly where global commerce started. I mean, they were going all the way to Asia to get goods, to spread all over Europe. And this was really, really important. And it was one of the reasons England and France and Spain wanted the colonies. They wanted the colonies because those were markets, those were resources that they could garner and sell to their markets. So global commerce is really a huge theme at this period, and it's why the colonies were established. Okay, we had Henry Hudson discovering the Hudson River and Hudson Bay. Most of you probably know. I mean, he was trying to pursue, a straight route to Asia, and he died trying to find it. He was still on the same quest that Columbus was on. Back in 1492. Henry Hudson was still there, in the early 1600s, and died trying to find this passageway to Asia. Why? Because of trade, because of silk, and because of the goods, the salts and the spices that they could get from Asia. So commerce affected a lot of what happened in the early colonial period. And then, of course, the other big theme is religious freedom. The importance of the early pilgrims is that they are the only colonists that initially came with their families. Jamestown, they were all entrepreneurs. They were wanting to get to the colonies and get rich quick, find gold, get back, and live, a lavish lifestyle. Same thing with the Spanish colonies in Florida. And all of the Spanish conquest in Central and South America, it was all initially just men. And the Pilgrims were the first ones that actually came with families and intended to settle the land. So that's